Story 1. I would never. I cannot imagine the heartbreak that would ensue. Also, you did not say anything about not aging. Imagining a 587-year-old body that is alive is really gross. Story 2. No, I think I would get bored after about 1,000 years, or maybe even a couple of hundred. Also, having to watch everyone I know and love die is unacceptable. Story 3. This question reminds me of Hob Gadling in the series The Sandman. Personally, I would love to know what it feels like to live forever, but it has to be when I am 28 years old. Story 4. I would not. I think death is a motivator for many of us and encourages living life to the fullest. Continuous living could eventually harm mental health, especially if you are the only one experiencing it. Story 5. No, I already do not want to be alive. Every day I hope that I will get hit by a bus or something so I will not have to deal with this anymore. Story 6. No. I am already sick of life at 19. When my time is right, I am ready. I cannot wait to see my family and dogs. Story 7. Hard pass. Knowing my luck, I would be spending the next 125 million years working as an information technology technical support agent. Story 8. If it is eternal youth, the misconception about immortality is that if you are immortal, you will reach a stage when you are ridiculously old. You will be on a bed, fully tubed up, living a miserable life forever. However, with eternal youth, you cannot reach that outcome because you will always be young. Story 9. Yes, I would become all-knowing and knowledgeable. I would perfect my musical abilities, learn every language, and study science. Story 10. Not like this. I am a Christian, so I have eternal life through Christ Jesus. However, immortality in this world would be hell with too much suffering and death. Story 11. No way. Living forever sounds like being stuck in a never-ending group chat with people you do not really vibe with. Story 12. Yeah, I would live forever, but only if I could keep learning, growing, and building. Watching the people I love pass would destroy me, but if I could somehow keep them close or at least honor them through what I create, I would keep going. The idea of having infinite time to master every skill, build every dream, and impact the world on a scale few could even imagine, I would take that trade. Pain and loss are part of it either way. Story 13. It depends. Are we talking about functional immortality or true immortality? I would absolutely choose functional immortality, but I would not want to have no way of ending it. Story 14. Only if I can choose to end it all at some point. Being engulfed by the sun when it swallows the earth in a few million years does not seem great. Story 15. If it comes with eternal health and me stopping aging at my current age, I am all for it. I want to see how the universe changes over time. It should come with an end opportunity. I do not want to be at the dead end of the universe with an eternity of nothingness ahead of me. Story 16. Yes, I would love to experience it all. I might even spend decades learning some awesome skills. Now we have to choose because time is limited, but when it is not, you can do it all. Story 17. I'm sorry my answer goes against the majority, but yes, I would. I am not growing old gracefully. I am going kicking and screaming. Life is too short already. If I knew today that I was going to live to age 100 and then die, I would truly be disappointed and feel cheated because there is a whole world out there that would take more than 10 lifetimes to even see and experience. So yes, count me in because even with the bad things life throws at us, life is still the best game going. Story 18. No, I would not do that. I am over my life as it is, and I am only 25. I cannot imagine existing forever, feeling trapped. Story 19. Absolutely not. I do not want the typical heaven depicted afterlife. I do not want to be locked into this consciousness forever. I want to return to the earth that bore me when I die. Ashes to ashes, dust to dust, dirt to dirt. Story 20. What if you accidentally get buried alive or end up at the bottom of the ocean? I am good. Or what if a bear eats you? You live forever, so you are now living bare waste. Story 21. Useless question without more information. Anyone saying yes would obviously regret it if they lived forever in constant pain and agony. Anyone saying no might regret it if they were guaranteed to have good health and happiness forever. Story 22. Immortality sounds fun, but only if you can turn it off when you get sick of it after thousands of years or when the world ends. Story 23. No way. I want to finally get some rest. Edit. Not to mention you would have to watch your friends growing old and dying. If you make more friends, then you get to watch again. I'm going to pass. Story 24. No, I have a bad heart. People do not live forever. Our body parts inside start the aging process of life. We are all made of cells. I guess electric heart and brain waves. I do not know. I am not a doctor. Story 25. Yes, as long as there is a failsafe to end it at a time of my choosing. I do not want to be drifting through space once the solar system is gone. Story 26. Yes, of course. Having the option to die would be nice, but I do not understand the people who just know for a fact that it will be unpleasant. That takes some ego to assume that 70 years of life experience is even remotely comparable to living, experiencing, learning, growing, and evolving for a million years. Story 27. Yes, sure, it would be a great idea to live through 2 to 3 more world wars and a bunch of epidemics and economic collapses. Story 28. 100% yes. There are too many books to read, films to watch, and music to listen to. The only condition is that all my loved ones should live forever too. Story 29. Forever? Oh, a really long time? Probably, as long as I do not age, I am perfectly healthy, and I get to choose when I die. Forever means you outlive the heat death of the universe, just existing in an endless void of nothingness for all eternity. I do not want that. Story 30. This is what the Abrahamic religions promise. For this reason alone, one becomes an atheist. Eternal life is a punishment. But if I ever live forever, here is my list of things to do. 1. Drink alcohol consistently. 2. Have sex all the time. 3. Smoke continuously. Story 31. Biological immortality means you cannot die from disease or aging, but you can still die from physical causes. However, being completely unable to die at all would mean spending an extremely long time in a dark and empty universe, vastly longer than the current age of the universe. Story 32. That depends on many factors. Do you age or do you stop aging at your prime? How about health? Can you still get sick or do you have perfect health? It would be difficult to live forever with an illness. Living forever with a body that ages over time would be a curse. If I could stop aging at my prime and have perfect health, living forever would sound good. I felt sad when I realized that space travel will never happen in our lifetime. Imagine witnessing humanity's progress and destruction. Story 33. No, the thought of seeing the entire history of mankind is actually unfathomable since we are still in our early stages and so much horror has already happened. Story 34. There is something beyond existence that we can uncover. How will humans evolve in the future? We may not live to see that, even if we live for millions of years. If you are a robot without feelings, how would you perceive the difference between existence and death? At least you can interact with existence, while death might be pure nothingness, with nothing to interact with for all eternity. Story 35. You would have to define forever. Beyond the rest of humanity, beyond the life of the sun, I am not sure I could stand to see the last humans die. If I could live until the time of my choosing, not a minute sooner or later, that would be fine. Story 36. I would like to live like 200 to 300 years, fully youthful, but be able to end my life at some point. Forever is a fate worse than hell. Story 37. With the life I have now, absolutely not. I sometimes wish not to be alive due to illness and other challenges in my life that are difficult. Story 38. I would not want to live with myself. Seeing everyone you love dead. Eons of time accelerate, perception decreases. Story 39. No, because everyone you love will die, and you will suffer. You can meet other people and love them again, but they will also die. Plus, you will get bored with life. Story 40. No. Our sun and our solar system will eventually die. We will have to travel through space to ensure the survival of our species. I do not trust humans, especially those of today, to guide us properly and secure our future. Living forever in a frozen vacuum until, after billions of years, I drift into an uninhabitable asteroid or planet sounds miserable. It is not worth living 100 years or less, or even more optimistically, in peace. Story 41. Such a deep question in just one line. My answer, if I could choose when it ends, is yes. If not, then no. The reason I would say no is that staying alive forever with no way out would be hell, at least eventually. Story 42. No. Even if you include clauses stating that you always have perfect health and never age, you will still watch all your family and friends die repeatedly until you no longer want to connect with anyone. You will be bored because you will have seen and done everything. You would live in constant fear of losing your freedom. What if you accidentally kill someone and have to serve multiple life sentences? You will witness all the worst aspects of humanity for hundreds of years. You will lose all faith and hope. You will live in despair. Life short, love well, die drinking whiskey and listening to rock. Story 43. No, but I would like an extended life. Personally, a guaranteed extra 200 to 300 years would be perfect for me. Story 44. Forever? Past the heat death of the universe and the trillions of years beyond? Absolutely not. As exciting as it could be to see the universe from now until the end, trillions of years of events, compared to eternity, the entire life of the universe is shorter than the breath of a fly. No matter how many years you imagine, you will make wonderful memories, but you will have infinitely more memories of silent darkness than you ever did of anything else. Forever is forever. You could live from the Big Bang to the heat death, and the majority of your life would still happen after the universe ends. The entire birth and death of the universe would one day be no more of your time, comparatively, than a single blink. I would never willingly subject myself to that torture. Story 45. Even in my ideal scenario where I stay young and healthy and do not get sacrificed, I am not necessarily saying I would not be interested in living longer than I will live, but forever is too long. Story 46. I would. It would be difficult most of the time, but I could watch my abusers die. In a world of no truth and no consequences, it would be worth it. Story 47. I would, but only if my body stopped aging in time to avoid being a decrepit old man forever. Story 48. No. I look forward to the peaceful release of death. Why would I want to remain in this difficult place and watch all my loved ones pass away while I stay behind? I would rather remove my tongue with a bamboo skewer. Story 49. I would like another chance to start at 20 again. Maybe, but I am not sure if I would take it if offered. But live forever? A definitive no. I would feel alone from the moment I knew I could not die, and nothing would change that for eternity. I know what being lonely feels like. I do not want that forever. Story 50. No, because I would have to outlive all my loved ones and never be lucky enough to succumb to whatever would ail my body. Story 51. If I am immortal in age and can end my life whenever I want, then yes. I want to study more of the living beings in this beautiful world. I have no limits for that. And if I cannot die, I have no fears. Story 52. Yes. Living forever would inevitably lead to becoming wealthy. It would be amazing to see the entire world. Story 53. Assuming you are speaking of a classical form of immortality, I would say it would be useful for someone to live forever. Imagine if we had a person who lived through antiquity and what we could learn from them. It would be a sad and lonely life, but if my suffering created a connection between the present and the future, I would endure it. Of course, after a few centuries, I would probably be a raving lunatic, so maybe there would be no use in the end. Also, I am not the brightest or most articulate person, so maybe I would be of no use from the beginning. Story 54. No. I have had friends and family members die already. I could somewhat get over all of them since my parents obviously aged, and my friends had issues, to say the least. I can only imagine the pain if I outlived people like my nephew. Story 55. Depends. If I can never die? No. If I can live forever as long as I simply do not die and I never get old, kind of like a vampire? Sure. Story 56. Honestly, it depends. Do I continue living how I live now? Do I have to continue working 40-hour weeks to then give that money to everyone else just for the privilege of living? Does my life stay exactly the same as it does now? So, absolutely not. Or do I get to experience things differently? Do I get to continue going back to university to study the things I am interested in, without the need for paying £10,000 a year up front? Do I get to travel the world and experience all of the cultures and wonders of the world that I have missed out on so far? Do I get to save as many animals as possible from whatever is troubling their existence? Do I get to help as many underdeveloped areas lead a fulfilling life? So, absolutely yes, please. Story 57. I plan to live forever, of course, but barring that, I would settle for a couple thousand years. Even 500 would be pretty nice. Chief Executive Officer Nwabudike Morgan, Morgan Link 3-dimensional vision interview, the longevity vaccine, Sid Meier's Alpha Centauri. Story 58. No. I am done with this one. Once I exit the simulation, I am permanently gone, or so I hope. Wanting to live forever is foolish in an immoral, meaningless, purposeless universe, which is most likely not even the base reality. Story 59. If I knew I was immortal, then yes. I would spend less time saving for my eventual, inevitable physical decline. Story 60. No. I have thought about this a lot, and I have discovered that I would not wish that on my worst enemy. Story 61. Yes. There are still too many things I want to do. Too many books I want to read. Too many films and shows I want to watch. And too many skills I want to learn and improve. Story 62. Is it forever or until you want to end it? I would prefer not to experience the sun turning into a white dwarf. Story 63. It depends on how my body would look and feel after more than 100 years. Do I stay at my current age forever? Or does my body continue getting very old? Story 64. Knowing I will die one day gives me the motivation to do something meaningful with all my remaining time. If I were immortal, I would probably lose my mind before reaching 100, so no thanks. Story 65. From the perspective of a man over 60 years old, if I could live forever, it would have to be on one condition: that I remain healthy. As we grow older, so do our bodies. If I feel the way I do at 60, imagine how I will feel at 100. I will feel terrible. The joints begin to hurt, the skin begins to sag, and organs start to fail. Also, diseases like arthritis occur. So yes, I would like to live forever, but only if I have good health. It is difficult to get old. Story 66. Forever is a dangerous thing to ask for because one day the Earth is going to disappear. Even the universe will disappear. Does that mean you will be floating around in empty space forever? Also, will you still suffer illness and injuries? If you are in massive pain and discomfort, not being able to die might actually become a curse. Story 67. Star Trek. The Next Generation had an interesting take on this. Story 68. No, I really don't want to survive my daughter, but I know that can happen in this lifetime too. When I am guided by eternal love, I know for sure it will happen. Story 69. No, not anymore. No children, so no future. I am also disliking many changes in the world now and cannot imagine how bad it will get. It is almost a relief to have a terminal illness, with a sort of get-out-of-life-free card by stopping treatment and entering hospice for a few days. Story 70. Yes, but I would like to be able to die whenever I want. I am curious to see what humanity will develop in the coming centuries. Story 71. I always think of Bruce Willis in Death Becomes Her when this question is put forward. Lyle. But you will never grow old. Ernest. Yes, but everybody else will. I will have to watch everyone around me die. I do not think this is right. This is not a dream. This is a nightmare. Story 72. Assuming I am not going to be left to float in the cosmos for eternity after the world ends. One of the reasons I find it hard to get motivated to try hard at life is because I know it is going to end soon anyway. It makes me feel like I am not going to work excessively like a slave just to die anyway. If I knew I had unlimited time, it would actually encourage me to get up and start working towards something more. Because I would know that I have time to actually achieve my goals no matter how difficult they might be, and that I would also have time to enjoy the fruits of my labor. It is interesting because I think death is a motivator for many people, but for me, it is the opposite. If I had infinite time, I would eventually be able to build my own empire and try to improve the world. I just hope that my immortality does not come with Superman-like invulnerability, because if it did, I would probably use it to enact world justice in ways some people might not agree with. Story 73. I have often pondered this and usually come to the conclusion that I would like the ability to live forever. However, if I were allowed to choose how, I would want to live lifetimes repeatedly rather than one continuous life. I would live from birth to 100, die, be reborn, and do it all again. I would not want to be stuck at a certain age for the rest of time. Story 74. No, absolutely not. Especially in this world. I am just in my 30s, and food prices are rising faster than my age. Whenever there is a natural disaster like a typhoon, it feels like the end of the world. In summer, it feels like being in hell, and I have not even mentioned aging and becoming frail. What if I lived another 200 years? Story 75. I am not sure. On one hand, life could become extremely depressing. On the other hand, it already is depressing. It would depend on the conditions of immortality. Would I remain young forever, in my mid to late 20s, or would I still age? Can I still die from injuries or hunger, or am I immortal in an indestructible sense? As for why, the only reason I would consider it is for the chance to see capitalism abolished and the bourgeois state, in whatever form it might take, dismantled, a situation to which I would actively contribute. I already am contributing, but I doubt I will live to see the day given the current trajectory concerning the climate crisis and other issues. Story 76. Part of me feels inclined to say yes, but that is mainly due to a fear of death. If I stayed as I am now, wise, young, fit, and healthy, it would be great to have lots of time to do more and see more. However, forever feels like torture, so in all, no. Please let me come back as a dog. Story 77. Yes, totally. Even a difficult existence full of boredom, pain, and confusion is better than the void. At least there is a self to experience the pain. Story 78. Yes, as long as I remain fit and healthy and either do not age or age very slowly, I want to experience as many aspects of life as possible. Story 79. What if I get bored? Running to the next thing, then the next, just to keep myself occupied. Forever? Even in the limited time I have lived so far, novelty itself has lost some of its appeal. The one redeeming aspect of the hedonic treadmill is that eventually, you will have the chance to step down. Story 80. If I could end with humanity, I am fine with that. But actual eternity? No. I could bear the loss of everyone I love only because I could shift my focus to knowledge, age with the world, and watch mountains move, rivers form, and even landmasses sink. Watch The Man from Earth. It is a pretty good film and is kind of the basis for this opinion. Story 81. No way. I do not want to be here now, and I cannot move. So you live forever, and if you get ill, you live with that forever. It is not worth the insanity that will never end. Story 82. Living forever sounds like power, but it risks becoming a prison. Time only has meaning when it is limited. Story 83. Yes, but not invulnerable, because when the sun explodes, I do not want to spend an eternity spinning through space like Cars from JoJo. Story 84. No, because everyone I love would not, and that is just too much pain and suffering. I think in some way, there is some comfort knowing that this is not forever. It challenges you and opens you up to change and risk in a way that living forever would not. Story 85. No, not even close. The idea unsettles me deeply. To me, forever feels suffocating, like being trapped in my own head for eternity. I already struggle with carrying myself day by day. The thought of never getting relief, never being done, never having it all stop feels like a curse, not a gift. I don't want endlessness. What I really want is to have mattered before it's over. I want a short, meaningful existence, one where someone remembers my softness, my sharpness, and my contradictions. If I lived forever, people would still leave me. So what is the point? Story 86. If I were there and guaranteed to be in good health the entire time, then absolutely I would. Story 87. I would love to, but one condition is that I have some form of super strength so that I can never be captured. Story 88. Dear God, no, never. I would not consider it for a single second. If the choice was to live forever or die tomorrow, I would tell everyone goodbye. There is nothing worth living forever for. Everyone I love would die. The world keeps getting worse and worse. No, absolutely not. Story 89. No, what happens if you trip and get stuck somewhere you will never be rescued from? Can you imagine waiting for Nutty Putty Cave to degrade enough for you to be freed? Keep in mind that the longer you live, the higher your chances of something like that happening. Story 90. Yes, so I could watch all animation, play all video games, and read and learn all knowledge, then show it off and have fun teasing people forever. Story 91. Not unless everyone I love is also immortal. Living to see what happens sounds nice until you realize you will be alone. Story 92. If I had the option to sleep for a century, catch up on rest, and spend the following century in complete silence, I would. However, the idea of experiencing more of life than necessary sounds simply torturous. Story 93. I would. The first 1,000 years would be hard, but then I would get used to it and be able to focus on what is really important, you know? Story 94. Forever? No, I don't want to live past humanity and not evolve with them. Imagine how humans would change and you would be stuck. You couldn't get away with it either and remain in society. Then just wait around until the universe dies? No thanks. Story 95. I would agree on the condition that I could be killed in a very specific way and that I would not age or become disabled due to old age or genetic problems. Story 96. If you could live forever implies being indestructible and ageless. If that were the case, I would. Story 97. That depends. If I were immortal and had accelerated healing abilities, I would either join the army and be like Wolverine or become a superhero still like Wolverine. Story 98. No. My grandma always said, God gives us 70 good years and 80 if we're lucky. Maud from Harold and Maud said it well too. I heard he's 80 years old. I'll be 80 next week. Good time to move on, don't you think? I mean, 75 is too early, but at 85 you're just marking time. May as well go look over the horizon. Story 99. Only if I could adapt my appearance and genetic code to match the current dominant species. Look at a Neanderthal to understand why. Story 100. Yes, so long as I did not age. I could choose to end it when I wanted and have at least some company that also aged with me. Story 101. Yes, but with a few conditions. 1. No health issues and a biological age of 28 forever. 2. Inflation-adjusted $250,000 per year after taxes. 3. My deceased family members come back to life, and immortality for all my family members with no health issues and $250,000 per year inflation-adjusted after taxes for each of them forever. 4. No sadness or depression for me and my family. 5. Ability to end life once the sun swallows the earth or whenever we choose. 6. No stagnation in happiness. It should always increase whenever we plateau. 7. Citizenship of any country. 8. Accidents should not cause physical or mental harm. 9. IQ of 250. 10. All the above conditions shall apply to me, my family, and our future generations. Story 102. No aging, no need for food, and a decent means of transportation. I would take a few hundred years at most, and even then it would be a really tough decision that I most likely would not make either way. Story 103. I would. Why? Because I want to see where humankind is heading, how we develop, how we avoid extinction, and if not, how we go extinct. I want to learn all there is to learn, love all there is to love, and hate all there is to hate. Read every book, master every skill, go to other planets. Also, robotic companions. Story 104. Yes, please. I want to see Andromeda and the Milky Way collide. It might take a while, but it will be worth it. Story 105. It would be beyond my emotional capacity to live without the people I love. My 26-year-old daughter passed suddenly in 2018. Her birthday is tomorrow. There is absolutely no way I can entertain the thought. Story 106. Hell yes. There are many stories playing out in the world right now. pains me that I will probably never see how many of them end. Story 107. No, I would watch every loved one die. Every time I find a new love, it is just rinse and repeat. Life has three parts: birth, death, and everything you do in between those events. Story 108. No, because living forever means you still have to face humans, pay bills, deal with problems, and encounter bad things. There are some good things in life, but they cannot last forever. For example, if I knew that I could live forever, then I might do bad things like going to the club all night, having one-night stands, drinking, and smoking. Story 109. Yes, because I want to see how things go. Even if history does repeat itself, I want to bear witness to the progress and endurance of humanity. Story 110. I don't think so. If I did, I would probably do it because I am afraid of death, but I do not want to be old. So, if I could stop at my age. Story 111. No. I am exhausted right now. Just thinking about feeling like this forever is, well, exhausting. But story 112. I think live forever must come with the clause of self-termination. There will still be a time when you are finally done. Eternity is long. Have you ever watched A Good Place? Story 113. Only if there is a condition of not aging mentally or physically. I would like to be able to take care of my children and grandchildren until they pass away. Then, after building an investment fund that provides income without working, I want to volunteer at shelters indefinitely. Story 114. No. I want to see my father again, hopefully. I do not know if there is an afterlife or what. I do know that I would very much not like to experience however the universe ends. Story 115. I feel like a couple of 100 years would be ideal. Forever sounds pretty awful unless you have a way out at some point. So sign me up. Story 116. I would do it. To be able to live through anything, see and witness everything. The fall or advancement of humankind and whatever comes after. The stories I could tell to all who would listen. Story 117. No. I do not want to live through the next 3.5 years because I am sure this country is in serious trouble and we will be entering a second Great Depression. Starving to death does not appeal to me. I would rather take care of it quickly myself. Story 118. The thing that is cool about life is that it ends, so you have to do the coolest things you can while you are here. Living forever defeats the purpose. Story 119. Living forever means outliving every living organism, which sounds like absolute hell. Plus, I do not like living now anyway. Story 120. Yes, I would spend every century perfecting my role. Artist, engineer, doctor, humanitarian, teacher, dancer, the list goes on. Story 121. As a lover of escapist science fiction and fantasy, I want to live forever so I can literally see the stars and visit far-off planets with the same ease that I can currently drive from home to the shops. I want to see nebulae, fascinating planets, and constellations. Story 122. I don't think I would. If I could choose to end my immortality at any time, then sure. I now have to consider the possibility of humans never leaving Earth. If we stay here and live until the sun engulfs the Earth or we eventually destroy ourselves in nuclear war, it would be terrible. In that case, would I still feel pain? Would I suffer radiation poisoning but still live? Not to mention that I would have to outlive every person I care about. I would have to start over with new friends, spouses, and children. My real family would be long gone. Story 123. Absolutely not. Because no matter how good you have it in life, the inevitable end will come eventually. Humanity will not last forever. If you could not die, eventually you would be stuck on this planet alone. Then what is the point anymore if everything you loved about living is gone because there is no society anymore? Even if you are okay with outliving all the people in your life that you love, you will not be able to enjoy life after the human race becomes extinct. In fact, the planet and even the universe itself will cease to exist. What happens then? Are we able to kill ourselves if we really want to? Or are we completely forced to live for eternity? If it is the latter, then you made a grave mistake. You are in for endless hell. If it is the former, then still no, for me personally. Story 124. It would be interesting to see what humanity does over the next few thousand years if our species lasts that long. Also, witnessing astronomical and geological phenomena that happen only every few thousand or million years. Seeing our sun balloon into a red giant would be an amazing event to witness, if only at the beginning, because I would definitely turn to ash at some point. Story 125. Does that start when I am born, or do I have to live before that too? I already have a lot to do. I do not want to have to deal with those crusades. Story 126. Only under very specific conditions. Can survive in any conditions in space without any problems. Has the ability to teleport to any location in the universe. When I have finally seen all I want to, I can choose to cease existing. Story 127. Definitely not. The lifespan of Earth is very short compared to eternity. If you could live forever, most of life would be spent staring into dark emptiness. Story 128. Do you keep living after a 10-mile-wide asteroid hits Earth and everyone else is dead? Your only friends are small mole mammals for 2 million years. Then, if you are lucky, some rabbits or capybaras evolve so you can make new friends. Maybe after 60 million years you can finally befriend some monkeys. If yes, then no. Story 129. Entirely depends on the conditions, and I mean entirely. What conditions are attached to this hypothetical? Story 130. Yes, with a few conditions. 1. I have an exit clause. For example, after 500 years I could end it. 2. 1 million gift every 5 years. Story 131. Yeah, because eventually I will accumulate so much knowledge and power that I will be able to solve many problems plaguing humanity and gain great insight. It would feel wrong to refuse it. If you spent a century learning economics, you could solve world hunger, and a century learning medicine, you could cure many diseases. Also, think of how good Doritos will be engineered to be in a millennium. Story 132. Yes, as long as it was with good health. There are many reasons why I would choose immortality. Story 133. Yes, but only if I do not continue to age and I can choose to die if I want to. I am interested in what the far future of humanity will hold. Story 134. Yes, because I want to see how unintelligent people become in the future. I want to see idiocracy come to fruition. Story 135. The problem with living forever is that eventually the heat death of the universe will occur, leaving you in an eternal empty void. This would likely drive you insane. Any organic life would evolve beyond your ability to interact with it. There are other factors to consider. Outliving the people you care about and the effort required to meet and care for new people. You would most likely become a hermit or go through various cycles of social and antisocial behavior. Any human governments aware of your immortality would likely attempt to abduct and experiment on you, posing serious issues for your autonomy. It would be interesting to live a long, extended life to see what happens, but to live forever is unlikely to work out well unless alternate universes and realities exist that you can travel to. Story 136. Only if I have the option to die when I want to. I am not about to float in space for eternity after the sun goes supernova. Story 137. I want to see my son grow up healthy and have a family, but I do not want to bury my son. Therefore, I do not want to live forever. Story 138. Yes. I would trick everyone into thinking I am a vampire. I would make legends about myself. I would stay mostly hidden, blending into crowds, but if someone does something bad, boom, the infamous vampire appears, and they are too scared to do anything ever again. Eventually, humanity becomes so scared of this legend that world peace is achieved. Then I reap the benefits like, hey, do you mind if you give me this castle? They would be too scared to say no, and bam, I get a castle and whatever else I ask for because everyone has to be nice or else the vampire will get them. But they will never know I am the vampire, and that I am also not a vampire. Story 139. I am thankful for everything that I have, but this experience lasting longer than it should shows a lack of evidence that it needs to last that long. If I were around people who felt attractive when they were with me all the time, the association might trick me into believing that I want to live a long time or something. Story 140. Absolutely not. Immortality seems like a nightmare to me. I find some relief in remembering that all of this will end for me someday. Story 141. No way. Immortality is much more terrifying than death. The sun will eventually become a red giant and slowly consume the earth. Story 142. The big disadvantage of immortality that I never hear anyone mention is that you would literally outlive the planet. At some point in the next million to billion years, or even sooner, a large asteroid will hit the Earth, the moon will collide with the Earth, or the sun will undergo a supernova. Because you cannot be killed, you will simply float alone in the great vacuum of space until something finds you or until space itself ends. So I guess no thanks. Story 143. No. Everything I own would have to be replaced. People would eventually stop making or doing things I enjoy. I would have to live with the knowledge that I will outlive every single one of my friends. On top of all that, life is generally unpleasant. Story 144. Yes, but I still want to be a young version of myself. I want to experience the many sides of life. Story 145. Okay, but realistically, if you are the only one, how long would it take for you to become an unwilling permanent resident of some research laboratory? There are many wealthy and desperate people out there. Your wants and needs barely matter now. Wait until someone discovers that you are immortal. Story 146. Maybe like 300 years, but imagine floating in space for 10 trillion years, your sanity completely gone after the sun exploded in constant pain, but you cannot die. Also, only 300 years if I stay moderately healthy and do not walk really slowly or slow in the head from being old. If this question means I just do not die of old age but I can die any other way, then yes, I will get euthanized at 100 or so. Story 147. Ugh. No thanks. I do not even know if I can or want to live in this world for another 30 years. This is hard. Story 148. Absolutely, I would want to live forever. Why do you ask? For the knowledge and because dying is no fun. I recently had a very close call, what you would call a near-death experience. It changed my life profoundly for the good. If I could, I would pass on the dying part. Story 149. I would, just out of pure curiosity about how the world will progress. Will we achieve the futuristic future envisioned in the 1960s? Or will the world end? What would that look like? Story 150. Yes. People say, oh, you will outlive everyone you love. Yeah, that would suck. But you would get used to the pain of love and loss quickly. I would have time to do everything I want, live every life I want, and rebrand myself as many times as I want. Story 151. What is odd is that I do not want to live right now, but I would accept that offer because I am so afraid of death. Story 152. Coming from, hell no. I want to check out today. I am currently at, oh Lord, yes, please. Fear transformed into curiosity, basically entirely. I would spend a couple of decades on a discipline, get really good at it, share the expertise, then switch again and again. Constantly making my actions matter for the greater good. Scrutinizing cause and effect thoroughly. Story 153. I would, but not like this. More as a ghost, meeting another ghost, and being ghostly together through the afterlife. Story 154. Only if I have the option to die whenever I want. If not, then it is a no. I am not going to be floating around in space for all of eternity. Story 155. No, because there is a stage in life where you need to die, live a happy or sad life in the afterlife depending on where you go, and meet your deceased loved ones. Also, if you live forever, even though you would be breaking records and existing in the future, you would find it hard to constantly socialize with people you do not know, as all your loved ones have already died. Additionally, there is technology to consider. So, really, what is the point of living on? Story 156. I think it would depend heavily on a couple of factors. Are we talking imperfect immortality? Live forever does not guarantee your wounds will heal, you will not get sick, you will not age, or your body will not just continue to deteriorate but never perish. Even if you did stay young and healthy, what about your mind? There are limits. Best case scenario, you reach the point where memories are made and lost at an equal rate, but worst case, you eventually reach complete senility or madness because your brain does not have infinite capacity, even if you heal. And speaking of madness, a broken psyche can occur even in the absence of physical damage. For example, immortality implies nothing about not feeling pain. Sure, you will live, but that does not mean you will not be in mind-shattering agony and torment. Personally, I believe it would be a mercy to die temporarily then wake up when you have healed versus having to remain conscious and in agony through the pain and healing process, which is almost definitely not instant or even fast. One of the most reliable methods of permanently destroying a person's psyche is physical torture. If you were immortal in this day and age of cameras and surveillance, you would almost definitely be discovered and, without a doubt, be imprisoned by any government then experimented on indefinitely. Governments grant neither rights, mercy, nor personhood to anyone they deem an asset to be used or an obstacle or threat to be handled. Even if, somehow, news of your inhumane treatment became public, it would likely only lead to something like the decision to test potential treatments or drugs or products on you, an actual human rather than countless animals with limited similarities, or paying for human trials because the knowledge you will heal and live makes it more acceptable to break one person than harm countless others. But, say you manage to successfully avoid detection and detainment, the biggest fear I have is probably the worst of all. Forever means forever. And maybe some of you are thinking something like, what if you get bored or decide you want out after all? And yeah, that is kind of my point, but not quite. I can live with getting bored and just slowly watching the centuries pass out my window like Bella Swan during her shut-in phase. But the scarier part is what comes after that stops. If forever meant until life on this world ceases, that would be fine. But living forever means that long after life here ends, you will remain, starving and thirsting eternally, deafened by the bleak silence and isolation, and likely either ever freezing or incinerating. Maybe the planet is destroyed, then you are jettisoned into the void, being ripped apart and reconstructed for time immemorial and adrift in the abyss. I would not mind immortality without aging or disease, healing properly without cognitive decline. I imagine eventually you would get past your emotional phase and the whole everyone I love has died or eventually dies thing, and learn that there is value in the memories and love you have shared, and in continuing to find new love. But I would want an emergency ejection button for when things around here go sideways before I become an immortal popsicle in space. Story 157. I would probably try. I spent my whole life feeling depressed and nihilistic in a way. I was happy but always had a deep understanding of what things were. It was quite dreadful. Now I just want to live. I want to experience the vigor and pleasures I see people have in life. I'm not close yet, but still, a part of me lingers, wanting to know what the good experiences really feel like. I've been missing too much. I don't know. I hope that it will become greater than it has been. That is improvement. Story 158. Imagine the knowledge you could gather, the advancements you could help humanity achieve. Scientists today often have to read material written 100 years ago and may misinterpret it. Imagine having all the knowledge you need with you at all times. Story 159. Forever? No, probably for 1,000 years, maybe, but only if it comes with eternal youth. I do not want to be a vegetable for 1,000 years. Story 160. Depends on your health, and everyone you originally knew would be deceased, so it might be tough even if you make new connections as a very old person. Story 161. No, I think things in general have more value if there is an end to them. For example, you enjoy your holiday because it is different from everyday life. It has value because it ends. If life were never ending, it would get boring. You would have too much time to achieve whatever you want, so the urgency of doing things now and living now would be gone. Story 162. Forever by itself sounds more like a curse than a compliment, but only if the people I care about could feel the same. Story 163. No, I want to go home. I have been waiting since I got here to go back. Why would anyone want to live forever? Honestly, why? Life is not what some of you think it is. Yes, there are good things and good people, but sadly, there is more bad than good. Everyone has problems. Animals have problems because of us. We are literally killing our home. Why would you want to live forever on a planet that is slowly dying and has inhabitants who do not care about it? Yes, animals do care, but we are animals. Why do we not care? We have Earth Day and many other initiatives that could literally turn this around. But what do? Make billions off it and barely do what we said we would. Yes, we are cleaning the beaches and trying to handle the Great Pacific Garbage Patch near California. but it will take decades to even make a dent in the damage we have done to the forests. If we keep making paper products to stop plastic pollution, that will not help the forests at all. It will just make things worse. If we start truly caring about our home, then I will want to live forever. But until then, I will still be waiting to go home. Story 164. The only reason I would is to see if we will meet aliens one day. It does not matter if they come here, if we find them on some planet, or if we meet them in space. Story 165. It would be my only wish to see what humans do next, what aliens will be like, and how they will colonize other planets. Story 166. No such thing. Everything that has a beginning has an end. Story 167. Only if it came with generational wealth and an exit button to die when I am ready. I do not want to keep working meaningless jobs for the rest of my life until humanity ceases to exist, and I certainly would not want to be the last sentient being long after the universe dies. Story 168. No, if you live forever, assuming you can still be killed or die from natural causes, you will die horribly. There are two certainties in life: death and taxes. Story 169. I would, but only if I stay healthy forever. Why? I want to be able to get into my spaceship and explore the universe, travel to distant civilizations, and talk to extraterrestrial beings. Thanks a bunch for sticking around till the end of the video. Remember to subscribe, and until next time, stay awesome and goodbye.